Obey without question. The reptile inside you. Does that inside your skull lives a creature older than language, older than reason, older than you? It doesn't understand philosophy or empathy. It only understands threat. This is the reptilian brain, and for thousands of years, it's been the secret weapon of those who want you to obey without question. This ancient part of your brain is simple. Fight, flight, freeze. That's all it knows. It doesn't ask, is this just? It asks, am I safe? So if someone can convince this part of you that safety is at risk, they own you. Not just your decisions, but your instincts. Leaders throughout history have used this to their advantage. Tyrants don't need thinkers, they need reactors. People who will follow orders, report their neighbors, repeat slogans, march in line. Not because they're evil, but because they believe they're in danger. That's how the reptile inside gets activated. And when it's activated, it shuts everything else down. Logic, empathy, memory, all silenced. Take soldiers in war. They're trained to obey instantly without hesitation. Why? Because hesitation can mean death. The training isn't just physical, it's neurological. Drill obedience into the reptilian brain. Strip away complexity. Replace it with reflex. Now imagine that same method applied to civilians. You're not holding a gun, but you're still reacting like you are. The media says, threat level high. Your government says, do this or you're a danger to others. Your screen flashes red with updates. No time to think, just obey, and you do. The manipulation is clever. It paints obedience as morality. Wear this, say that, report them. You become not just a follower, but a believer. The reptilian brain doesn't care about truth. It only wants to belong to the safe side. That's why groupthink feels so comforting in times of crisis. Being part of the majority signals safety. Dissent feels like danger. So people silence their doubts, censor their questions, and follow the herd. The reptile is running the show now. Obedience becomes identity. This is how whole societies fall into step with destructive systems. People look back and wonder, how did we let that happen? The answer, slowly, reflexively, with good intentions and primal fear. The reptilian brain does not need evil to do harm. It only needs to be afraid. Even in daily life, this wiring shows up. In school, obey the teacher even if the rule makes no sense. In work, obey the boss, even if it feels wrong. In family, obey tradition, even if it's toxic. Disobedience triggers fear, not because you'll be punished, but because you'll be excluded. And exclusion feels like death to the reptilian brain. But here's the twist. That part of your brain isn't bad. It kept our ancestors alive. It saved lives. But in a world where threats are manufactured, exaggerated, or invisible, it becomes a liability. The reptilian brain was built for lions, not headlines. To reclaim your freedom, you have to pause, breathe, ask, am I obeying because I believe or because I'm afraid? When you slow down your reaction, you give your higher brain, the thinking part, a chance to catch up. Obedience without question is not loyalty, it's programming. And the first step to breaking that programming, recognize the reptile inside, respect it, but don't let it drive. Media's favorite tool, keep them scared, keep them quiet. The most powerful form of censorship is fear, not taking away your voice, but making you too afraid to use it. That's how the media controls narratives, by scaring you into silence. Turn on the news. What do you see? Crisis, danger, outrage, panic. Not just once a day, but every hour. And not just about real threats, but everything. Weather, politics, health, neighbors, ideas. Every subject is injected with fear, because fear sells. But selling fear isn't the end goal. It's the delivery system. The real goal is control. When people are scared, they don't argue, they don't protest, they don't think critically, they just want safety. And the media offers it at a price. The price is your obedience, your silence, your conformity. Media outlets learned long ago that fear is sticky. It keeps you glued to the screen. You'll watch more, scroll more, click more, hoping to find the next threat before it finds you. And in the process, you absorb the rules, the right way to think, the correct side to stand on, and the people you must never question. If you do question them, you're labeled conspiracist, dangerous, anti-this, anti-that. It doesn't matter what your point is. The fear tactic kicks in, not just yours, but others. People won't defend you. They'll avoid you, because fear is contagious, and the media knows it. That's why stories aren't just news anymore. They're morality plays. Heroes versus villains. Saints versus sinners. You're told who to fear, who to cancel, who to trust blindly. Not because it's truth, but because it keeps you tuned in, locked in, and afraid of stepping out of line. Divide, distract, dominate. Fear's role in modern power. Fear doesn't just paralyze people, it fragments societies. And divided people are the easiest to dominate. In the modern age, power no longer relies on brute force alone. Control has become psychological, subtle, sophisticated, and fear sits at the center of it. But this fear doesn't always look like screaming or panic. Often, it hides behind headlines, policies, and screens. It looks like anxiety, stress, and division. But make no mistake, its goal is always the same: control. Let's break down the formula. Divide, distract, and dominate. First comes division. This isn't accidental, it's strategic. A united people are strong. They think, they question, they resist. But when they're divided by race, class, religion, gender, ideology, they become easier to manage. Fear feeds this division. Leaders or media don't need to invent new enemies. They simply need to highlight existing tensions and exaggerate them. Show just enough violence. Push just the right buttons. Let fear do the rest. You start fearing your neighbor, your colleague, the other side. You become so busy watching them, you forget who's pulling the strings. History has shown this time and again. From colonial divide and rule tactics to racial segregation to red versus blue politics today, fear has always been used to break unity. And once people are afraid of each other, they stop being afraid of the real power structures above them. Next comes distraction. Fear not only divides, it occupies the mind. Constant alerts, sensational news, social media outrage. You're too busy worrying about the next crisis to reflect on the system you're in. Every day, something new steals your attention. A war here, a scandal there, a virus, a collapse, a protest. Real or exaggerated, it doesn't matter. As long as you're emotionally activated, you're distracted. And distraction is the perfect cover for domination. New laws are passed, freedoms are traded, surveillance expands. While you're focused on what you're told to fear, someone is rearranging the system around you. Then comes domination. It doesn't always arrive with tanks. In the modern world, it arrives through silence, through data, through laws you didn't vote for, through agreements you never read. And yet, most people comply. Not because they want to, but because fear made them forget they had a choice. Here's how it works on the brain level. Fear activates your amygdala. This part of the brain doesn't think, it reacts. And when it takes over, the logical brain shuts down. You become more tribal, more suggestible, more obedient. You crave safety over truth, order over freedom. Governments, corporations, and media outlets understand this well. It's the reason why crises, whether real or manufactured, often lead to a surge in compliance. People give up privacy. They accept censorship. They even cheer for it, believing it's for their protection. But what they're really doing is giving away their power. And once it's gone, it rarely comes back. So what's the way out? You can't avoid fear, but you can recognize when it's being weaponized. Ask yourself, is this fear making me think clearly? Or is it clouding my mind? Is this fear connecting me with others? Or making me see enemies everywhere? Break the chain, divide, distract, dominate by doing the opposite. Unite, focus, reclaim. Unity breaks control. Focus defeats distraction. And awareness ends domination. Because when fear no longer controls the people can finally control their future. Why fear turns crowds into mobs. A calm crowd can change the world, but a frightened one can burn it down. Throughout history, mass movements have transformed societies, some for good, others for horror. What makes the difference? The emotional state beneath the surface. And the most powerful emotion in the crowd is almost always fear. Fear turns individuals into a mob. It erases personal responsibility. It amplifies emotions. It spreads like wildfire. And once it's fully ignited, reason has no chance. Why does this happen? Because fear is contagious. In a crowd, you don't just feel your own fear, you absorb the fear of others. Your brain starts mirroring the panic, the urgency, the outrage. You begin reacting to the group instead of reality. This is called emotional contagion. And once fear hits critical mass, the crowd becomes something else, a hive, a wave, a force. The individual disappears. The crowd takes over. Mob behavior isn't just irrational, it's ancient. In early human tribes, group panic often meant survival. If everyone ran, it usually meant something dangerous was near. So running with the group increased your chances. That instinct still lives in us today. But in modern life, it gets hijacked. A rumor, a tweet, a loud voice. Suddenly, the emotional temperature rises. Logic fades. People stop asking, is this true? And start asking, which side are you on? Mob fear demands action, now. It doesn't care about facts. It wants a target, a scapegoat, a punishment. That's why terrified crowds are easy to manipulate. All it takes is a trigger, real or fake, and the rest follows automatically. History is full of examples. In the Salem witch trials, fear of invisible forces led to executions. In Nazi Germany, fear of economic collapse and enemies within created a genocidal machine. In the Rwandan genocide, radio broadcasts turned fearful neighbors into murderers overnight. Even peaceful protests can flip. One provocation, one explosion, and the crowd's energy shifts from unity to violence. This isn't about evil people. It's about fearful minds overwhelmed by group emotion. In crowds, fear lowers the threshold for aggression. It dehumanizes the other side. It turns people into symbols. And once someone is no longer seen as human, anything can be justified. But here's the twist. Fear also makes the mob feel righteous. When people feel threatened, they believe they are defending themselves. Even when attacking, this creates moral blindness. You believe you're saving the world, even as you burn it down. So how do we stop fear from turning crowds into mobs? First, awareness. Know that you are vulnerable to it. Everyone is. It's not weakness, it's biology. Second, presence. In any heated situation, take a moment to breathe. Look around. Ask yourself, am I thinking or just reacting? Third, stay human. Refuse to dehumanize. Fear always paints others as monsters. Resist that story. See the person, not the label. And finally, courage. Speak calm into chaos. Remind the crowd of its values. One grounded person can shift the energy. Maybe not always, but enough times to make a difference. Because fear will always try to turn crowds into mobs. But it only succeeds when everyone forgets who they are. Stay awake. Stay human. That's how the spell breaks.